Hello, I'm the real-life fake wizard. A few weeks ago, I made a video about Highguard. I've played it, I gave it a fair shot, and I told you it was boring. Since then, the studio behind Highguard, Wildlight Entertainment, has laid off most of their team. 16 days after launch, to be exact. The game hemorrhaged players from 97,000 on day one to a few thousand players within 2 weeks. Highguard, for all intents and purposes, is on life support with a skeleton crew that may or may not be able to keep the lights on. That's bad. And I do feel for the developers that have lost their jobs. It is not easy in this economy by any means. But one of those developers wrote an article on X explaining where their head is at after this whole thing. And my friends, this article is one of the most revealing things I've read about the state of the gaming industry in a very long time. For years worth of videos, we constantly speculate as to what's gone wrong in gaming, but here and now, a developer grieving their job and years worth of work has accidentally exposed what the people making AAA games really think about the people playing them. And it's not great. Today's indie game shoutout is Greytail, a small island in the Pacific, and the greatest female pilot has vanished. Suffering from severe headaches, our protagonist depends on medication as they search for her. But what is real and what is hallucination? This is a Zelda-like mystery adventure to uncover the island's truth. To learn more about this and hundreds of other indie games, visit our free indie game discovery network, fakeportal.com, or scan the QR code on your screen. Now back to the video. Yeah, as we get into this, I want to be extremely clear early on. This video is not an attack on this developer. I'm not going to name this person because I'm not speaking to them directly. This video is not a response to them as an individual, okay? I thank them profusely for writing this. It takes some guts to put your thoughts out there, especially after something as high profile as Highguard. And you're going to see in the ways that we break this down, I'm addressing the AAA industry, not one man. The things written here shine a massive spotlight on why there are so many problems in gaming. And with that, let's start at the very beginning. Number 1, the Echo Chamber. The day leading to the Game Awards 2025 was amongst the most exciting of my life. After 2.5 years of passionately working on Highguard, we were ready to reveal it to the world. The future seemed bright. Everyone I knew who had any connection to the team or project had the same sentiments. This is lightning in a bottle. I trust this team wholeheartedly. If there's one project nobody in the industry is worried will fail, it's yours. This has mainstream written all over it. There's no way this will flop. I could play this game all day. Every single person they talked to told them this game was going to be a smash hit. Not one dissenting voice made this list. Not one person said, hey, I have some concerns about the map sizes, or maybe we should run a beta before we launch this game. Nothing. Just unanimous confidence from everyone in the room. And the developer goes on to say some of this feedback came from, quote, unbiased sources. But here's the thing. They were still sources the team chose to show the game to. That's not unbiased at all. You've actually curated who is providing you the feedback. You selected the people, showed them the game in a controlled environment, and they told you what you wanted to hear. Whether you know it or not, you created an echo chamber. And where there is an echo chamber, you find toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is when the pressure to be supportive and encouraging becomes so intense that it replaces honesty. It's not the same thing as being positive at all. Being positive is great. Being optimistic about a project you've been working on is healthy and it's normal. But toxic positivity is what happens when that optimism becomes the only acceptable opinion in the room. And anyone who expresses doubt or concern or criticism gets treated like they're being negative, like they're not a team player, like they don't believe in the team's vision. And so anyone who might have had some doubts or concerns stops talking, or they get pushed out, or they learn to just nod along because disagreeing costs more than it's worth. And the people left in the room are the ones who told leadership exactly what leadership wanted to hear. And then those are the quotes that end up in this developer's article as proof that the game was supposed to be a hit. Everyone said it was amazing. Yeah, because the people who didn't think it was amazing were either silenced or self-selected out of the conversation. This is actually pretty serious because if you're incapable of seeing the flaws in the work you do, if you can't admit the mistakes you've made, You're either lying to yourself or to others, which makes you reckless and a bad team member, or if you genuinely can't see your flaws, you're delusional, which makes you dangerously risky, and I personally never want to work with you. Number 2, shills and content creators. Then the trailer came out, and it was all downhill from there. Content creators love to point out the bias in folks who give positive reviews after being flown out for an event, but ignore the fact that when their negative-leaning content gets 10 times the engagement of the positive, they've got just as much incentive to lean into a disingenuous direction, whether conscious or not. This is a twofold situation here because, 1, you're admitting that the access media journalists and content creator shills do have a bias to report favorably after being pampered, given gifts, and flown out to events, which means everything IGN, PC Gamer, and anyone else who went to your event are all compromised. We should never take the word of access media shills for anything other than paid advertisement, even when there's not a dime involved. These people sell their integrity and audience's attention for a bag of Swedish fish. The second issue, because there's 2 here, was content creator detractors, and that everyone was inherently negative. Well, the circumstances to which Highguard was revealed at the Game Awards was worth criticizing. Jeff Keighley oversold the game to high heavens. Welcome to Highguard somewhat sounds very Elder Scrollsy. And then the first shot of the trailer was a mountain that looked awfully similar to the last time we saw an Elder Scrolls game reveal, only for it all to be another hero shooter. The presentation of this is in part Wildlight's fault for participation, yes, but also Jeff Keighley's fault for overselling something that was going to underdeliver. This speaks heavily to the fact Jeff doesn't understand who gamers are either. He knows nothing about who gamers are or what they want, and neither do AAA developers. But also, did every independent content creator hate on Highguard? I didn't. I did a whole video advocating for you in defense of Highguard, and I said that even with the terrible Game Awards reveal, if Highguard had been undeniably excellent, if people were loading into matches and having the time of their lives, you would have proven all of your critics wrong. You would have rewritten the script. The Game Awards was awful, and then lots of creators criticized you, but you know what you had? Curiosity. People were curious. If you had stuck the landing, this conversation would have been totally different. Creators are negative when you give them a reason to be negative. They're not inherently negative, although a lot of people will believe they are and disagree with me. If you insult the audience, if you belittle your customers, if you think you're better than you really are, independent creators will be there to hold you accountable, like Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor. The stories say that he had a servant follow him around, and every now and then the servant would whisper in his ear, "Remember that you're just a man." Well, that's what content creators are. You're not special. You cannot think you're better than anyone else and get away with it for very long. We'll be here to remind you that you're just a man. Number 3, the framing of the review bomb. The developer cites 14,000 negative reviews from users with less than an hour of playtime as evidence of coordinated review bombing. And this framing is something that drives me up a wall because it comes up every single time a game fails and the developer or the media doesn't want to accept why. Review bombing does not exist. I did a video on that here and you should watch it after this one. But okay, in most cases where there is alleged review bombing, those people don't have any hands-on experience with the product. They haven't seen the movie, they haven't seen the game. In our case here, 14,000 people quit playing the game before they finished the tutorial or finished their first match, and they left a negative review. That's actually 14,000 people telling you that your first impression was so bad they did not want to continue. Time is precious and competition is limitless. If your game can't hook people in under an hour, if 14,000 human beings bounced before they even got through the tutorial, then maybe the tutorial is the problem. Maybe the onboarding is the problem. Maybe the first hour of your game is too boring, which, by the way, it is, because I played it, and that's exactly what happened with me. The matches are empty, the maps are too big, the looting phase is a waste of time. You don't need a conspiracy to explain why people didn't enjoy that. They're telling you why in the reviews. And I'll tell you something else. Gamers are stubborn pains in the ass, okay? Okay, gamers? I see you out there. If they like something, they don't care about reviews. If they're enjoying a game, they're gonna keep playing that game, and they will go toe-to-toe fighting with people about it. You know how I know? I read my comments. Yeah, when I say something bad about a game that people like or a franchise that people like, they lose their collective minds, and rightfully so. You, Highguard, lost 90% of your players. They weren't convinced to quit by some outside coordinated source. You just gave them no reason to stay. Number 4, the Game Awards folly. There is so much constructive criticism that can be and has been said about Highguard's trailer, marketing, and launch, but I don't think it's my place to commentate on that. I also don't think there's any way to know whether the launch would have fared better or worse without the massive spotlight that was thrown onto us in response to the Game Awards trailer placement. But we never got that chance. Yeah, I've already addressed how awful the Game Awards announcement was and how out of touch Jeff Keighley is with gamers, but I also want to say that gamers are looking for something authentic. In fact, gamers are crying out daily for authenticity. Please give us good games. Please give us complete games at launch. Please stop carving your games into microtransaction hellscapes. Please give us experiences that we will talk about for 20 years. And very soon, it will be 20 years since we've been able to say things like that. Since 2013 and onward, gaming has been an empty and hollow shell of what it once was. And that's why we lose our minds when we talk about games that are just good enough, and we treat them like diamonds in the rough. Because they are diamonds in the rough. The Game Awards announcement was the most inauthentic sham. Everything about it felt fake. And you guys played all the right notes in the right ways to get everyone collectively around the world to say, "You're joking, right? Welcome to Concord 2.0. Number 5. We deserved better than this. Even if Highguard had a rocky launch, our independent, self-published, dev-led studio full of passionate people just trying to make a fun game with zero AI and zero corporate oversight deserved better than this. We deserved the bare minimum of not having our downfall be gleefully manifested. Who do you think you are? Who is it that you think you're talking to? Who is it that you make products for? You see, this might be the most revealing segment in the whole article. We deserved better than this. And why? We're independent, self-published, developer-led, and built with passion. You make video games. You're not out working on a farm. You're not coal mining. You're not slaving away in the elements of the weather. You're making a video game with a $9 Starbucks venti in one hand and a $1,000 iPhone in the other. You live a life of privilege making art all day with your team and taking home a 6-figure salary. You frame this as if you guys were an indie dev team picking yourselves up by your bootstraps. Bullshit. You had millions of dollars invested behind you. You might have been independent on paper, but your culture is corporate. The market does not grade on a curve based on your studio structure. Being independent doesn't entitle you to a positive reception. Being passionate doesn't entitle you to good reviews. Using no AI doesn't mean the game is automatically fun. Having no corporate oversight does not mean the product is automatically good. Those are process qualities that the market does not judge by. No, the market judges by output. No product deserves a warm reception. We deserved better. From whom? From the 97,000 people who downloaded your free game and tried it? They gave you their time. The most valuable thing a consumer can give you is their attention. And they gave it to you. The experience you provided wasn't good enough to keep them. You're framing this as if the audience failed you. Wrong-o, you failed the audience. My friends, there is a fundamental relationship in every market between the people who make things and the people who buy them. And I talk about this often. This is so important, and not enough people understand it. Somewhere along the way, particularly in gaming and entertainment, the relationship between buyers and sellers got flipped. It's been broken. Hijacked even. Sellers stopped believing they needed to earn the transaction and started believing they were entitled to it. The attitude became, we made something, therefore you should buy it. Not, We made something great, and here's why it's worth your money. Now all it is we made it, we worked hard, we're passionate, where's our money? Money, please. And when the revenue doesn't show up, the buyer is framed as the problem. The buyer didn't support the product. The buyer was toxic. The buyer hoped it would fail. The entire accountability got inverted so that the customer is now expected to justify why they didn't buy something rather than the company justifying why a buyer should have. This is why I advocate for fighting back against corporations. This Highguard situation was organic. It was natural. But if we thought a little bit more, if we planned a little bit more and we communicated a little bit better, buyers could regain complete control of everything, though they don't want us to know that. Number 6, the guilt trip. Many of Wildlight's former devs will now be forced to assimilate back into the actual corporate industry many gamers accused Wildlight of being part of. Now, every time someone thinks about leaving the golden handcuffs behind in favor of making a new multiplayer game the indie way, they'll say, but remember how gamers didn't even give Wildlight a chance? Soon, if this pattern continues, all that will be left are corporations, at least in the multiplayer space. Innovation is on life support. We need to go through this one section by section and line by line. Devs will now be forced to assimilate back into the actual corporate industry many gamers accused Wildlight of being a part of. You were corporate. I said it earlier in the video. You might not have been a corporation, but your culture was corporate culture. Everything you did was conventionally corporate product launch. You announced on the most corporate marketing stage. You held in-person events for slimy corporate shills to promote your product. And the product itself was a sweaty microtransaction cosmetic game designed for corporatized esports events. There is nothing indie cultured about you. Every time someone thinks about leaving the golden handcuffs behind in favor of making a new multiplayer game the indie way, they'll say, but remember how gamers didn't even give Wildlight a chance? Good. Good. That's the message. Stop making these live service games. Stop making these sweaty microtransaction games. Make something new. Make something original. I hope that's the message you guys receive. I hope this corporatized branch of gaming dies out. Soon, if this pattern continues, all that will be left are corporations, at least in the multiplayer space. I like that you included that caveat at the end, at least in the multiplayer space, because, yeah, indie companies are thriving right now. A new one pops up every day. And this furthers my last point. We don't need more live service competitive multiplayer slop. But also, let's take this from another angle. You're saying indie developers will not be able to get funding from making these multiplayer live service games. Nay, nay. Corporations will be forced to think twice too now. Concord killed the Justice League, X-Defiant, Foam Stars, Marvel's Avengers, Redfall, Lawbreakers, now Highguard, and there are 50 more games like this behind it. Eventually, corporations will learn that they need to start making better games if they want to earn players' money and time. The universal revolt behind the worldwide universal revolt behind Highguard might be just enough to move the dial a little bit. And finally, innovation is on life support. Oh? Innovation is on life support? You didn't innovate anything. Every feature in Highguard is rinse and repeated from other games. Innovation does not die because one game fails. Innovation dies when studios stop making things people actually want. Again, the indie space is thriving right now. College bros on laptops have the ability right now to create, innovate, and inspire, resulting in breaking records and pocketing thousands, if not millions of dollars. The sky's the limit right now for innovation. This claim shows you don't even know what innovation means. Consumers do not owe you a purchase to keep your vision alive. That's not how the market works, and framing your specific game's failure as the death of innovation for an entire industry is grandiose in a way that, frankly, proves the point about the echo chamber in point 1. Inside the bubble, this project was supposed to change the world and save lives and cure diseases, and outside the bubble, it was a 3v3 shooter in an empty theme park. Number 7, missed points. There is a list of concrete, fixable problems that contributed to Highguard's failure, and the developer's article doesn't address any of them. I'd like to address some of these right now. 1. The PC version had ridiculous system requirements that included invasive kernel-level anti-cheat and invasive secure boot. 2. There was no beta test, no testing in the gamer marketplace. 3. At least one of the characters was broken and unbalanced. 4. Zero marketing led to no one knowing why we should care about the Highguards as a brand or a concept. As you run through the game, you'll hear characters saying, "You're a Highguard." Okay, what does that mean? Because I don't know, and I really don't care. Number 5, Wildlight invested a small fortune into making this game fully localized around the world with voice acting and translations in 10 different languages. Now, getting your product accessible for international markets is totally fine, but it's very expensive to do, and you didn't have an MVP, minimum viable product, tested with customers before you paid all that money for the translations. Had this game been tested in English-speaking regions, you'd have learned how much work was needed on the actual game first, and then you could have used the localization funds you spent to make a better game in the beginning. Wait a minute, wait, pause everything here. The game shipped worldwide fully translated in 10 languages on day 1. That means the entire world was the player base. So this wasn't Western chud gamers complaining that killed the game like the access media wants you to believe. The global gamer audience reject this game. That's incredible. 6. There was 16 days to layovers. Live service games require sustained investment, and part of that is being able to handle a rocky launch, especially on a new IP with no beta testing and no prior customer base. If your game can't survive past 16 days, that says to me, you not only thought you had immediate success, but you also required it. The business plan had millions of dollars in income as a day 1 requirement. Number 8, media gaslighting campaign. I would like to address the discourse that's happening right now across social media in the wake of all of this, the layoffs and this article, because it connects directly to everything we've been talking about. Right now, across Twitter and forums and gaming media, there are developers and access media creators saying that gamers should support games, that we shouldn't hope for games to fail, that celebrating or even acknowledging failure is toxic and hateful because real people lose their jobs. But here's what the support games argument actually is when you strip away the sentimentality. Yeah, what these people are actually telling you is that you should spend money on products you don't want so that people who made the product you don't want can keep making products you don't want. They're asking you to subsidize mediocrity out of guilt. They're telling you that your role as a consumer is not to evaluate what you're buying, but to financially support an industry regardless of what it produces. This is exactly what I said earlier. The relationship between buyers and sellers is broken. We made something, therefore you must buy it. And let's talk about who's actually making this argument, because it's not random gamers who are saying this, it's developers who benefit from an audience that doesn't hold them accountable. It's access media outlets that need the industry to keep functioning exactly as it does so they can keep getting early review copies and event invitations. It's also influencers who were flown out to play Highguard and told their audiences it was going to change gaming forever, and now they all need the conversation to shift away from how wrong they were. These people aren't defending workers. They're defending the pipeline, the system of paid access, early builds, shill coverage, and corporate relationships that keeps them all relevant and paid. When they say support games, they mean don't disrupt the ecosystem that keeps feeding us. The executives who greenlit a live service game into a genre that has produced nothing but consecutive failures are responsible for those layoffs, not the gamers. Slimy journalist shills. And even though this adventure has come to an abrupt and emotionally challenging close, I don't regret 1 second of it. Also, I just wanted to shout out some incredibly supportive journalists and creators who genuinely made a night and day difference in enduring the past 2 months. All of these folks deserve far more credit than they get for their empathy, intuition, and integrity. And then the developer names 9 people who ran defense for this game. Is this what journalism is now? It's pathetic. Journalism was never supposed to be emotional support for companies that they covered. A journalist's job is not to make a developer feel better about their game flopping. A journalist's job is to inform the audience, to investigate, to ask why the game shipped with one map, to ask why the beta was skipped, to ask why 250 people were laid off 16 days after launch, to ask where the money went and who made the decisions that led to this outcome. That's journalism. What this developer is describing and thanking people for is public relations. It's reputation management. It's Access Media doing exactly what Access Media does, running defense for the people who give them access. And the developer praises these journalists for their integrity. Integrity? Do you understand how backwards this all is? Integrity in journalism means telling the truth even when it makes your sources uncomfortable. Integrity means writing, "This game has serious problems and here's why," even if it means the studio stops returning your emails. What this developer is calling integrity is the exact opposite of integrity. It's not integrity, it's loyalty. And this is why no one trusts gaming media anymore. When a developer thanks a journalist for emotional support during a product failure, that journalist has failed, and y'all should be keeping track of anybody who was named to be involved here, because guess what? They are all compromised. Do not trust a thing those 9 people and more have said or will ever say again. Your names to the world should be mud. And here we are on the other end of this very intense video. I've gone through this entire article now. The echo chamber, we've talked about the content creator blame, the review bombing accusation, the we deserved better, and the thing that stands out most to me is what isn't in this article. Every single problem is identified as external. Every failure is someone else's fault. The trailer placement, the content creators, the gamers, the review bombers, the meme culture, the discourse. Not once does this developer look inward and say, we made a product that wasn't good enough. Or maybe there was something we could have done better. Nothing. There is no internal insight. And that, my friends, is the real story here. It's not Highguard. It's not one game. It's not one studio. The real story is an industry that has become so insulated, so convinced of its own brilliance, that it cannot process the idea that the customer might be right. An industry where the audience is treated as an obstacle to the creative vision rather than the reason the creative vision exists at all. An industry where the game scored badly and players left is being attributed to sabotage and toxicity instead of, the game not being good enough. You are not obligated to support games that do not earn your support. You are not toxic for having standards. You are not a saboteur for leaving a negative review. And you are not responsible for layoffs that were caused by executives making bad decisions. Think for yourself, please. Trust your own experience and never let anyone in this industry convince you that you owe them your money for a product that bored you. Until next time, create, innovate, inspire, and for the love of God, cancel Disney+. Thank you.